watch the double black diamond.
Meeting of October 27th. We're gonna go ahead and get started. As soon as we're all up here.
Sorry, talking bicycles.
You'd all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ashley, could you call the roll? Board Member Connolly?
Here.
Board Member Lucero? Board Member Ritter? Here. Board Member Kimmelchu?
Here.
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 Board Member Knuckles? Board Member Steve Reynolds? Here. Calderon? Board Member Steve Reynolds? Board Member Joe? Here. Consent agenda, is there anyone who would like to remove anything? None, we have a motion. Move to approve consent agenda. All those in favor? Aye. And we have no action items this month, so we'll move on to item number 6, the North Valley Passenger Rail Strategic.
Yeah, good morning. Hear me okay?
Yes.
There you go. Yeah, good morning. We wanted to give you an update on the kind of the status of the North Valley Passenger Rail Strategic Plan. I think you might recall in June, we came and gave you an update where we're at. Staff and the consultant team provided a PowerPoint presentation detailing some of the initial assumptions that we've come up with to that point, including potential station locations, layover facility stations, a few other items, and these assumptions were necessary for input into Caltrans modeling work that they were going to do. So we've been working the last couple of months with Caltrans Division of Rail and Mass Transportation, have them conduct their Viriato model analysis on our initial assumptions to give some feedback on the types of issues that might arise by introducing passenger rail trains to the rail network, and more specifically looking at where the trains might pass each other, and sort of rail line if there's not sidings in those areas. That work took longer than we anticipated, unfortunately. Caltrans had some turnover of staff right at the time that we needed them to start. But we did finally get that information from them, and so the next step, what we're kind of working on now, is to get that information over to Union Pacific Railroad, Caltrans outputs, and the rest of our initial assumptions, for them to conduct their modeling analysis. So we got that information over to them in mid-September, and so at this point, we're kind of trying to work out our contract with them to move forward with the work. It's taking a little bit longer than we'd hoped for, just because Union Pacific is a very big organization. We're hoping that the striking of rail workers doesn't come back to the forefront. That could potentially slow things as well. So we actually have a meeting with them scheduled for tomorrow to get that work moving forward. So their work's going to give us a really good indication of, first of all, whether or not the Chico route's feasible. We have alternative route to Oroville. It's not feasible to come up the Chico line. And then it'll also just give us information on really the types and the scale of improvements that we'll need to make to the existing rail network in order to bring passenger trains up here. So part of the study, we're looking to get underway with it here just in the next couple. So we've been moving additional components of the study forward at the same time that we've been dealing with Caltrans. So one of those is that we've advanced the ridership analysis to determine potential ridership for the system. So our consultant team at AECOM is using they have a specific model that they use, that they've developed to predict ridership. And so that's moving forward. We expect that to be completed towards the end of the calendar year. Share that with you, obviously. Then we're also just getting started moving forward with doing a deeper analysis of the Chico Station possibilities. There's currently 2 possibilities kind of on the plate. Use the existing Amtrak station. The other is to work with the Barber Yard development, just forward and plan out, and maybe the environmental dock coming soon. To work with them on seeing about a passenger station at that location. Both locations kind of have their challenges. I think you heard some of that at the June meeting. On that, so we're going to do kind of a deeper analysis on that and arrive at the preferred station. We'll also be working with Amtrak on that. If we were to move this station to the Barber Yard site, they'd need to be then sort of additionally, just as we've been working with the consultant team and with Dan Levitt at Joaquin Regional Rail Commission, we realized there's some additional work that would really be beneficial if we could conduct as part of this study, and so together an amendment to AECOM's contract to add some additional work, which includes like the production of additional fact sheets and brochures, and I think we shared our fact sheet with you previously. Just have some material for the public and just good things for lobbying to take back to DC. Also the Chico Station analysis that I mentioned. And then we're also going to take a look at the Sacramento Valley Station and determine what it would take to bring our trains into the Sac Valley Station. The Sac Valley Station, we're currently not planning on having our trains stop there. They're going to be stopping in like Midtown Sacramento and the Old North Station. And the reason they're not stopping at the Sac Valley Station is it doesn't have the capacity to receive additional trains right now. It's maxed out. If we were to try to bring trains in there, it would push the initiation of our service into the longer term, sometime after 2030. We're looking at ours being a midterm project. So, but we want to know, what would it take to bring our trains in there? The interest in bringing them in there is you could connect to the Capital Corridor service, which would be a quicker trip into the San Francisco Bay Area via train. So, anyway, that's something we're going to be evaluating towards the end of this year and into early next year. Sure.
Wasn't it originally to Natomas, at the original site that
Right.
we had talked about?
Yeah, so the North Valley specific plan is looking at expanding service from Natomas northward. There's already service from Natomas southward. So, Dan Levitt's agency, Regional Rail Commission, San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority. Those 2 entities, manage the Altamont Corridor Express trains and also the Amtrak San Joaquin's trains. Those trains currently only go as far north as Stockton, but they have a project to bring those trains up to Natomas. Either way, already happening with that. So we would simply be sort of extending their trains northward to Butte County. So yeah, when you head south on a train from Chico, once the system's implemented, be able to ride all the way to Stockton, all the way to Merced to tie into high-speed rail at some point. And additionally, I think like Union City, into Union City. There's also a BART extension tying into Union City. So anyway, so yeah, you'd be able to basically connect all over Northern California at some point. As their
Well, if we can't get it to Oroville, let's take it to Paradise.
Is
I'm looking for
Union
votes here.
Pacific, do they like the idea, or are they kind of fighting it?
They're okay with it. Dan Levitt and his team has developed a really good working relationship. And we've had several meetings with them, and initially we thought just coming to Oroville was the only possibility, but they said, hey, we think the Chico line is something that's worth looking at. So they're with it on board because it's something the train time.
They're tough to communicate with, and they kind of do their own thing, and so,
They've been really good.
they've been good, excellent.
I mean, they met with us before we even drafting grants. They obviously, I think, have some need.
My concern with both of the, if this ever happens, okay? My concern with the downtown station or the Barber Yard, I'm thinking that there's needs a large amount of parking. That's where it's going to be difficult.
Problem with the downtown,
Yeah.
there's not much parking. Also, the length of the passenger trains. So, you know, that would be, then if you go there, you have to have a layover facility that can have to take the train out of the town and find a Harbor Yard. You could stay over there, you know, like an area where,
Oh, okay.
but we have to see, we have to do. That was my concern.
Right, and I'm surprised that Dan has the ability to get better parking spots, but maybe there is.
Yeah, there's an area where they did remediation for some of the soil contamination.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Was our understanding, and so that's been sort of capped. And so that's the area where he's like, I don't think there's anything else I can do there, so.
Okay.
Does that plan where they're looking at the Barber Yard, does that look at putting some kind of bridge or tunnel onto the west side? Or is all access from the east side?
We haven't gotten to that kind of specificity yet, really, just I think there's a couple sentences in this. Could be a passenger train station here in the future as well. We would try to keep if possible, the access to the train on the east side, rather than having people cross the tracks and take a circuitous route to get to that west side over there off of. But again, those are details that we'll look at and, you know, share with the board.
I think what Tammy's getting at is, that community is very tight-knit, and they're very aware of more traffic, more cars coming through on the streets, so.
Yeah.
Just something to be aware of.
Yeah, we've heard that, and yeah, it's something that we're gonna have to take seriously and look closely at. I'm sure, you know, if it were to happen, maybe there's some.
I'm sure we could make room in Durham for a station down there.
That's right.
Just speaking up, Orville has a place where the old roundhouse was, where you could turn a train around. You already have sidings and available, and it's owned by Union Pacific, so I gotta put a plug in for Orville. The mayor texted me, he's on his way to look.
Also go backwards, just FYI. The turnaround. Back up, huh?
A couple of the other things that we're working on is putting together an initial project description, which we're gonna need for the environmental document, just to accelerate that work so that we can move into the environmental phase more quickly. And then we're also gonna develop station simulations, basically just our artistic renderings of what each of the stations would look like. And then we've included a updated project schedule in attachment 1 that kind of reflects these new tasks and a little bit of the delay in the schedule due to. I think the key takeaway from the schedule is that we're looking at being completed about this time next year, barring any more delays. All we have, happy to answer any more questions.
Any public comment? Move on to item number 7, update on regional early action planning grant outreach and project nomination.
Yes. So BCAG's been allocated almost $3 million in 21 regional early action planning grant funds. So we're coordinating with our member jurisdictions, stakeholders, and members of the community to identify projects to be considered for funding. And this is part of basically like a $600 million state funding program for MPOs. So the $3 million is kind of BCAG's cut of it. And it's not really a grant program; it's an allocation. So you know, we have to submit an application, and of these funds, we have about $2.65 million that are available that BCAG can sub-allocate to our member jurisdictions, to the city and county. So we've been coordinating with them to see what projects they may have that would be eligible to sub-allocate funds for them to various projects. So, you know, in order to kind of develop the list of projects for this application, we're required to go through a fairly extensive outreach process. We're sort of underway with with already. Outreach has a couple different components. One is coordinating with BCAG member jurisdiction staff. We've been doing that. We've developed a preliminary list of nominated projects, which is included in the attachment. That list also reflects our outreach to the 5 tribal governments in Butte County, government letters to them, informing them of the grant program, followed up with them to see projects that they want to submit. We did the same with a group of stakeholders. We have a list of about 30 stakeholders, representatives from like low-income housing, active transportation, development community, and others. Reviewed the program with them, solicited any projects that they wanted to nominate, and so that's sort of resulted in that list of preliminary projects that we've included. About 20 projects there. It's more, I think there's about $11 million worth of projects. We only have about 3, and so we're obviously going to whittle down the list. And so kind of what the program requires us to do is, you know, reach out to various segments of the community, disadvantaged communities, low-income, and get their input on the preliminary list of projects, which ones they view as being favorable, and take that into consideration with regards to which projects make it to the application. We're getting ready to move into that phase of this process, and we will be we're developing a survey which is going to be online, and then we're going to be at various community events to solicit additional input from community members. And after we've gone through that outreach process, we'll be circling back with member jurisdiction staff and kind of coordinate on which projects are going to move forward. We're going to have like a ranking criteria where we're going to, the criteria is, you know, community. So we'll see what shakes out. The full application is due December 31st. So we're kind of like accelerating this and trying to like get it going as quick as we can. The grant guidelines were released in July, so it's a really tight time frame. But we expect that at the December board meeting, we can bring to you the list of projects that are going to make it. So yeah, we'll be attending next Wednesday in Gridley, the Dia de los Muertos, and we're going to have a table there with information, see if we can about the survey. We basically have like a QR code that they can scan, and it'll bring them to the online Survey Monkey kind of. Attend the Oroville Fall Festival or Harvest Festival downtown next Friday. So we've got a few events. We're going to just, sometimes it's better just to go right out to these community events and get in. We'll be distributing the flyers regarding the survey to various community groups, Southside Oroville Community Center and the Cultural Center and things like that to try to get.
Events planned for Chico?
No, we were going to go to Chico Belloween, which was at the Dorothy Johnson Center, and it got canceled. We're still working on one for Chico. Yeah. There's the Dia de los Muertos this Saturday in the Chico Cemetery, but I'm able to attend.
So how do you propose to get input from the smaller communities, which have also proposed projects, but if you only ask in Oroville and Chico, nobody's going to say they support the Paradise or Biggs or Gridley projects? Yeah. So we're going to go to the community groups there. It's hard to find like community events in each jurisdiction. We're going to go to the various community groups, and we have a flyer which has information on the survey, which will allow them to provide us with that information. We're going to cast a pretty wide net. We're definitely going to each community. It's hard finding events, you know, in a 4-week time frame that we have in each community, especially when they start getting canceled. Yeah, we reached out in Paradise. There's a craft fair or something, and they actually told us we weren't welcome. So. Yeah. So yeah, we're doing the best we can, and the community input is just one element of the ranking criteria. You know, we're going to have like
10 to 12 different ranking criteria. That's one of the 12. So good news, I think, is that the projects that we've received so far are scattered geographically very well. Each jurisdiction has at least one project that meets the grant program criteria. So we're hoping that each jurisdiction will receive funding for at least one of the five.
So you said that, you're gonna use community preference and questions in terms of how we gather that, but, is there any kind of, anything that we're using that's consistent among different communities in terms of tracking, or is it just kind of what we heard and
Yeah, well,
feedback?
yeah, we're working with our consultant team at PlaceWorks. They're also doing our SCS update. Yeah, we'll be developing a matrix just like you're saying with criteria, you know, scoring for each project. We can share that with you at the December meeting. Again, we've got a short time frame to turn this around with the grant guidelines being released in July. We've got a consultant on board in August. Applications due in December. And at the end of the day, you know, it's $3 million, which isn't quite a bit of money, but when it's construction projects are eligible also. So a single construction project can gobble up the whole. But we'll share that with you at the December meeting.
Any other questions?
I'd like to see online input received. We've done with the SSTAC or other groups where
Sure.
5 minutes, you want to look at what projects are before the board and can't come to a meeting or share, you know, ability at least.
Is there any public comment? Moving on to item number 8, the unmet transit needs schedule for next year.
Board, as you all know, as the administrator for the TDA funds for Butte County, responsible for the annual unmet transit needs process to identify unmet needs in the community. So for in Butte County, the UTM process entails a comprehensive public outreach program culminating in the public hearing before the BCAG Board of Directors. For 30 days before the public hearing, testimony is solicited regarding perceived unmet transit needs that may be reasonable to meet. The purpose of the process is to ensure that all unmet transit needs that are reasonable to meet are met before funds are expended for non-transit uses such as streets and roads. Staff has made the decision to move the UTM process up this year. Last year, we started for the 2022-23 fiscal year, started it in February. And by moving it up and starting it now, we'll be able to make it more in line with the TDA apportionment so that we can actually definitively say there are no unmet transit needs that are actually apportioning. So testimony is gathered and then analyzed to determine if there are any transit needs that meet the adopted definition of unmet transit need and reasonable. And then that transit needs assessment is reviewed by the Social Services Transportation Advisory Council, which provides a recommendation on the findings to the Board of Directors. If the board determines that there are unmet transit needs that are reasonable to meet, those must be satisfied before any TDA funds can be expended on streets and roads. The public hearing is set for December 8th before the BCAG Board of Directors at its normally scheduled time. We have posted flyers in the Chico ER, the Paradise Post, the Gridley Herald, and the Mercury Register. Those flyers are also going to be made available on our website and on all of our buses. I have extra flyers here that have been printed if you'd like to take any.
Any questions for Victoria? Brings us to item number 9. Thank you, Victor. Items from the floor. Are there any members of the public? Are then adjourned until our December meeting on Thursday, December 8th.
And